ask you one quick question now. Are we pretty, do you feel like we're pretty consistent in terms of, like the first one was a variance, the second one was a variance? On your cases, are we consistent in terms of how we're gonna move with them? But should not approve?
He was adamant about being approved.
Wow.
Because he's saying that he didn't predict the hardship. I said, well, the other guy didn't predict the hardship either. He can't.
Like you said, if you're gonna approve one,
Yeah, that's what I feel like. We need to be consistent. We need to approve the other one.
and I'll
That's
follow
just me.
you on this because.
Okay.
And that's all I wanna do. I want us, because you're looking at a variance on something, you know, and they right here together. It ain't like you wait 2 months and then you got a different variance. So,
What did I do with my glasses? Okay, I would like to welcome everyone to the Henry County Zoning Board meeting of Thursday, September the 10th, 2015. We'd like to take care of some housekeeping items at this time. This meeting is being televised live on Channel 180 and on Charter Channel 180 and AT&T UVerse Channel 99, and will be rebroadcast every Thursday at 7 o'clock p.m. and Saturday at 12:30 p.m. It is available by video on demand by the county website, on the county website. Now would be a good time to turn off cell phones or any electronic device that may make a noise and be part of the recording that might impede the hearing of the broadcast. If you wish to speak tonight, you need to fill out a public hearing speaker card. We will allot 10 minutes for those who speak in favor of a case and 10 minutes for those who want to speak in opposition of the case. And those are shared times, so if 10 people wish to speak, they all share in the 10-minute slot and so forth. Please address the board when you come to the podium and not the audience when you come to speak. At this time, we'll have the invocation and pledge by Delander Nelson.
stand, please. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this evening. We ask that you be with us in decisions that's made this evening. We ask that you guide us. These things we ask in your name. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This meeting is now called to order. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda? I have a motion by Elton Alexander to approve the agenda. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Babb, a second. Any discussion? All those in favor indicating by raising your hand. Motion carried. Okay, at this time, we'll have a motion to approve the minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Have a motion by Mr. Nelson to approve the minutes. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Mr. Head. Any discussion? All those in favor indicating by raising your hand. Motion carried. At this time, we'll have staff comments. Are there any staff comments?
Madam Chair, there are no staff comments at this time.
Okay, thank you. Okay, now we're going to move on to the agenda items. If we can have staff call the first case.
Case number CU-15-11. Deborah Wilson of Locust Grove, Georgia, requests a conditional use for the property located at 1310 Lester Mill Road in land lot 182 of the 2nd District. The property consists of 2.053 plus or minus acres, and the request is for a non-commercial kennel. It is located in Commission District 1 and will be presented by Adrian Center.
Good evening, Madam Chairman and members of the board. The applicant is requesting a conditional use to operate a non-commercial kennel on 2.053 acres property located at 1310 Lester Mill Road, and it's zoned residential agricultural. The subject property consists of a single-family residence with approximately 165 feet of road frontage on Lester Mill Road. The applicant intends to keep no more than 10 poodles on the subject property. According to the applicant's site plan, there is a fence located behind the applicant's porch. The ULDC defines a non-commercial kennel as any single-family residence in the RA zoning district where no more than 10 adult dogs and/or cats are kept as pets for non-commercial purpose of hunting, exhibition, and shows, field trails, or breeding. Surplus of offspring bred at such kennels are enhanced to perpetuate any given breed recognized by the American Kennel Club, may be sold at such kennels and shall not be considered a commercial activity. All animals kept or maintained in said kennel must be owned by the individual family residing upon the lot which the kennel is located. The proposed non-commercial kennel should not cause traffic congestion, but may cause conditions with potential for noise from the dogs that may adversely affect other nearby properties in the area. The property is surrounded by residential lots that are larger than 1 acre in size. According to the submitted survey, the property's topography seems moderately consistent. The applicant has approximately 2.053 acres, which is appropriate acreage for the proposed use. The applicant has a large backyard which will be suitable for the proposed use. The requested conditional use, if approved by the Zoning Advisory Board, will permit the applicant to operate a non-commercial kennel. The proposed use should not be unduly detrimental to nearby properties, as the subject property is surrounded by residential lots that are larger than 1 acre in size. Any adverse impacts may be mitigated by conditions requested by the Zoning Advisory Board. Staff does recommend approval of the request with 4 conditions. At this time, I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, is this time, do any of the board members have any questions for this staff?
No.
Okay. I would like to ask the applicant to please come forward. Please state your name and address for the record.
Deborah Wilson, 1310 Lester Mill Road, Locust Grove, Georgia.
Do you have anything you would like to add to the staff comments?
I would. The reason that I am here, I did not know that I could not have 10 dogs. So therefore, when I was cited, and the reason on my paperwork was not due to noise, it was due to excessive dogs. I did call the Enforcement Code office and spoke with Pam and asked her exactly what the complaint was and what the person had said. And at that time, I was told that it was excessive dogs. There was never anything mentioned about noise. I am surrounded by a wooded area. I do sit back far from the road. My dogs are not excessive barkers. So I do have a problem with that being stated earlier today. As far as there was something mentioned about the 50-foot perimeter from the boundary lines, I do have a waiver, administrative waiver from Mr. Dante. He said that he could do that and did do that. It should be in my paperwork. I am not asking for a commercial kennel. I want a non-commercial where I can have my dogs, which are my pets. I do breed, but they are for my pleasures, and we do show. We enjoy doing them, and I think we're very responsible pet owners. basically, that's pretty much what I have to say about my situation.
Thank you. Do any of the board members have any questions for the applicant?
Yes, I do.
Mr. Head?
How many, I guess I wouldn't say how many, but when the dogs are out, you let them out, right?
Right, they have to go out to go to the bathroom, yes.
Okay. And I guess what I'm trying to get at is, is there a lot of noise?
Normally, about 4 dogs go out at the time, and no, there's not a lot of noise, and they are supervised. I don't just turn them out to run, rip, roar, and play. I have a covered back porch, and either my husband or myself sit out there with them, and they are supervised.
And you do breed, right? You
I
said
do
you-
breed, yes.
Do you have any litters now?
I do.
You do, okay. I guess just about. Yeah, one other thing. Did code enforcement come out to your property?
Yes, sir, they did.
What?
Mr. Carpenter came out. I was at work. I work in Forest Park, and he left a business card on my door. I called him as soon as I found the note on the door, and so he was to send the citation paperwork to the sheriff's department because I don't get home until 6. He's already off work. So the sheriff's department came out, I think it was the following Saturday, and served me with a citation.
Was that the only citation that you had, the only time that they've been out, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Well, they did come twice. They came a second time with Commissioner Moss and the director, and I'm sorry, but his name slips my mind, came out and spoke with my husband. But they only came the one time with a citation, and it was served.
Anyone else have any questions for the applicant? Okay, you may be seated.
Thank you.
This time, we're going to have 10 minutes for those who want to speak in favor of the case. Please state your name and address for the record.
Catherine Mattermore, 681 Southwest Duckett Court, Lake City, Florida. I just wanted to say that I do visit the Wilson household frequently with overnight stays. The dogs are not all out 10 at the time. She usually turns 3 to 4 out at the time. And I don't find excessive noise. There's not a lot of waste on the ground. It's all cleaned up behind the dogs. And they are in a fenced-in area. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Anyone else want to come and speak in favor of the case?
My name is Julie Zubal. I live at 2809 Silver Queen Road in Ellenwood, Georgia. And I am here to support my friend. I believe that she is a wonderful pet owner. I love to visit with her. And I believe that she's doing all the right things for her pets.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to come and speak in favor of the case?
Hi, my name is Amy Blackburn. I'm at 115 Gill Lane in Stockbridge. I'm here because I'm a dog groomer, and several dogs from this particular kennel have come to my operation to be groomed. And I've never met the breeder, but I've met her dogs, and I've met a lot of the people who have purchased them. And so I'm here tonight, and I only know about this through one of the owners who called me and said that there was a hearing tonight. And I groom her standard poodle and her golden doodle, and they're wonderful dogs, and she raves about the dogs. I also groom a dog named George that came from this kennel. The owner's name is Terry Hyatt, and the poodle and the doodle that I groom, their owner's name is Annette Matos. So these animals are just wonderful, and they're high quality, they're well taken care of. What was told to me by the people that own the dogs, I only groom them, but what was told to me by their owners was that when they purchased them, that the paperwork was so solid, the website was so solid, the environment they came from was very clean and solid. You can look on the website yourself and you can see pictures taken with each owner that purchases puppies, and it's very professionally ran. Also, my sister-in-law, Melanie Kimbrough, she purchased a poodle from this kennel. Her name is, I can't think of her name, I'm nervous. It came from the same litter as Onyx, and I think her name is, I can't think of it, but anyway. So she also raved about it, and she didn't get this dog from the kennel till it was 6 months old. But at that time when she went in to get her, she said the dog had been well socialized, well taken care of, was part of the family. She said everything was very, very in the home. So I know this lady loves her dogs. And I know that not from her, but from the people that have purchased from her. And I don't even know her. But I'm here on her behalf because I'm a dog lover.
Thank you. Anyone else like to come and speak in favor of the case? Okay, I don't see anyone else coming up. So now we'll have 10 minutes for those who want to speak in opposition of the case. Okay, I don't see anyone else coming up. All right, well, I need to ask the applicant to please come forward again. So, based upon what you heard from a public comment, I'd like to ask the board if they have any further questions for the applicant. So they do not have any further questions, you may be seated. If we could call the case.
Case number CU-15-11, Deborah Wilson of Locust Grove, Georgia, requests a conditional use for the property located at 1310 Lester Mill Road in Land Lot 182 of the 2nd District. The property consists of 2.053 plus or minus acres, and the request is for a non-commercial kennel. It is located in Commission District 1 and was presented by Adrian Center.
Okay, do you have a motion for this case?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve it with the following 4 conditions recommended by staff.
Okay, I have a motion for approval of this case with 4 recommended conditions. Do I have a second? Second. I have a second by Mr. Risher. Are there any discussions? No discussions. All those in favor of the case indicate by raising your hand. Motion carried. Thank you so very much. Next case, please.
Case number VR-15-07, Dr. Peter Wizuzu of Stockbridge, Georgia, requests a variance from development regulations for the property located at 3760 and 3750 North Henry Boulevard in Land Lot 64 of the 12th District. The property consists of 0.743 plus or minus acres, and the request is to allow the conversion of a single-family residence into a medical office. It is located in Commission District 4 and will be presented by Adrian Center.
Thank you. Good evening again. The subject properties are currently zoned R3, which is single-family residence. There is a rezoning application running concurrently with this variance request. The applicant is requesting multiple variants to allow the existing building to be utilized as a doctor's office. The requested variances are as follows. Reduce the minimum lot area requirement from 32,670 square feet to 32,359 square feet. Reduce the front yard setback from 50 feet to 49.6 feet. And there is one additional variance that we'll have to consider tonight, which is a reduction in the buffer requirements from 40 feet to 21 feet to accommodate the existing structure. A variance may be granted upon a finding by the Zoning Advisory Board that all of the following criteria have been met, that there are no extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to the subject property with regards to its size, shape, or topography. The current size of the lot is 32,359 square feet on septic, which does not meet the minimum lot size of the current ULDC as adopted in 2009. The property owner would not be able to use the lot for any commercial uses other than its legal non-conforming use as a residential dwelling. The applicant intends to combine both 3750 and 3760 North Henry Boulevard to serve as a larger tract of land for commercial use. The provisions of this chapter would deprive the applicant's rights commonly enjoyed by other properties of the district. The property size makes the lot legal non-conforming. Granting the requested variances will not impose special privileges that are denied to other properties within the C3 zoning district. Other property owners in the C3 zoning district can also submit a variance request to be heard by the Zoning Advisory Board as necessary. The requested variances, if approved, will be in harmony with the purpose and intent of Section 11.02.00 of the Unified Land Development Code. The special circumstances are not the result of actions by the applicant, as the applicant would like to utilize the existing structure in conjunction with the proposed doctor's office. The subject property's current size was established prior to the applicant's ownership and the adoption of the current minimum lot area requirement for commercial properties with septic systems. The requested variances are the minimum needed to allow the property to be utilized as a doctor's office or clinic. The rezoning application is running concurrently, as stated before, which is from R3 to C3. This will negate the current site design standards. The requested variances will not permit a use of land, buildings, or structures which are not permitted under the C3 zoning district, as the variance is needed to allow the property to conform to the current C3 zoning district development requirements. Staff has recommended approval of the variance request, and at this time, I can answer any questions you may have.
Any questions from the board for staff?
I have a question.
Okay.
So the variance request, we had 2 requests and you added a 3rd request. Could I
Yes, ma'am.
ask you to please repeat the 3rd request?
Yes, ma'am. It's to reduce the buffer requirements from 40 feet to 21 feet to accommodate the existing structure.
All right, my next question is that the front, the back, or the side?
It is any portion that abuts a residential zoning district, which will be the sides in the rear.
But these are 2 properties that he's combining, so that means, are you asking, it's just a question because I gotta make sure in my mind what you're asking. Instead of a 40-foot buffer all around both of those properties, he wants a 21-foot buffer around all that property, including the one with the house.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And what's the reason for the 21-foot buffer on the property that doesn't have the house?
Well, once he combines the 2 lots. This site plan actually shows both the lots combined. The buffer will be required around this perimeter. That is currently 21 feet, so he would need a reduction in order to meet the requirement.
So where's the house? Can you point to where the house is now? And it's sitting on the property line on the other side, so there's no buffer? Oh, I see.
21.1 feet away from that.
Just on
property
that
line.
side?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So, and then what's this other, where your ink pen's laying across it? Is that another building?
No, that's a fence, I believe.
Is that like what's fenced in there, do you know?
As far as I know, there isn't anything
I didn't
located
think so.
within the fence.
So there wouldn't be a need for a 21-foot buffer except for where the house is located?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, that's all I needed to know. Thank you.
Any additional questions from the board? Okay. At this time, we'd like the applicant to come forward, please. If you would state your name and address for the record.
I'm Dr. Peter Ngwizu, 3750 North Henry Boulevard, Stockbridge, 30281.
I'm sorry, will you state it a little louder, sir? I couldn't hear you.
Peter Wizuzu, 3750 North Henry Boulevard, Stockbridge, Georgia, 30281.
Do you have anything that you'd like to add to staff recommendation?
No, sir. No.
Okay. Does the board have any questions for Dr. Peter?
I do.
Okay.
Are you conducting business on this property today?
No.
Okay, have you made any improvements to the property since you purchased it?
Yeah, we've done some painting and all that.
Okay, outside the property, did you put in a parking area?
I believe they did. Yeah. Yeah.
You put in a parking area? And have you disturbed any of the buffers that now exist?
No.
You haven't cut down any trees?
No.
That's all I have.
Okay. Does anyone else have additional questions for the applicant?
You own the property, right?
Yes, sir.
Any additional questions?
Tell us about the practice. You're stating in the notes that you're moving from the McDonald Square to this location. Is that correct?
Yeah, I used to have an office in the square in McDonough,
Okay.
and I've been a family physician for 17 years, and I moved to Georgia in 2008, and I have had my practice ever since. So I just recently bought this home, and I wanted to use it as an office.
So basically, this is an expansion of your practice, or is bigger office, bigger space?
Oh, well, I have a small practice. You know, I mainly see the uninsured. I mainly do telemedicine. You know, and I also run a free clinic every now and then.
Thank you.
Okay, so when I was there, I noticed 4 parking spaces. Do you have any intent to adding any more parking spaces?
No.
So if this is a free clinic, don't you think that maybe you'll have more than 4 cars parked there?
It's not a total free clinic. You know, there are some people who are disabled or they don't have any money. I do some free clinic, but there are some other people too that have to pay. And sometimes I see patients who are insured.
I guess I'm trying to kind of wrap my head around, you have 4 parking spaces in your doctor's office. Are you planning on putting more spaces in the adjacent property that you purchased?
No.
Okay, so do you know why you would have to have a 20-foot, from a 40-foot to a 20-foot buffer on the rest of the property, except for that's right beside the house? Would you be an objection to leaving that at 40-foot buffer instead of the 21-foot on the other, since you're not going to be doing anything with it?
I don't know much about the buffer. You know, I'm not going to say much about it, but as I was meant to understand that there is a minimum requirement, and so I'm just appealing to the board to, you know, help me get it approved. I don't really know very much about all the technical stuff about it.
So basically, how I understand it is you're applying to for a variance on what the rules state for what you have to have for what you want it to be zoned, like a C3.
Right.
And so there's a buffer that has to go around your property at 40 foot.
Right.
And so so one of the requirements is that to be reduced to 21 foot all the way around. But I'm noticing, and I'm asking you the question, so that kind of helps me understand what the needs are that you might have. And I asked you if you were going to have additional parking, and you said no. So I just didn't see a requirement to change a 40-foot buffer around your property to 21 if there's nothing else going to be built or a parking lot to have to accommodate a 21-foot buffer, except for where the existing building is, and it is an encroachment on the 40-foot. It's at 21 right now. So, you know, that just kind of helps us see what it is that's really needed for that property for the variance. Does that help?
In the future, I may be able to expand and build either a home or a parking lot over there. So
So you're thinking about building a house, a
no,
residential home?
you know, I'm saying like I could build anything. I could build a house. I could build a parking lot. Because that land is vacant right now. The 3760 is vacant, and yeah, you know, I don't know.
Okay, I just, you know, it just kind of helps us understand, you know, we don't want to, we just want to understand kind of what's happening so that we'll know how to adjust our vote and things like that. So that's all I have.
All right.
Okay. Any additional questions from the board? Okay, you may be seated, sir. Okay. At this time, we'd like to allot 10 minutes for those who'd like to speak in favor of the case. 10 minutes for those that would like to speak in favor of the case. Okay, I don't see anyone coming forward. At this time, we'd like to allot 10 minutes for those who are speaking in opposition of the case. Okay. Since no one is coming forward, you may come back, sir. Does the board have any additional questions for the applicant?
I don't, but I have a question for the staff.
Okay.
So, can we put a condition on the variance?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Well, if there is no additional question for the applicant, you may be seated, sir. Okay. Call the case, please.
Case number VR-15-07, Dr. Peter Wizuzu of Stockbridge, Georgia, requests a variance from development regulations for the property located at 3760 and 3750 North Henry Boulevard in land lot 64 of the 12th District. The property consists of 0.743 plus minus acres, and the request is to allow the conversion of a single-family residence into a medical office. The case is located in The property is located in Commission District 4 and was presented by Adrian Center.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
I have a motion to approve VR 1507 variance with the two development regulations that were stated by staff, with the third addition to read that the reduction of a 40-foot buffer to 21-foot. Whoops, she took my map down. Only be where the house is encroached upon the buffer of, if that's making sense, and the rest of the 40-foot buffer would stay with the property.
Okay.
That's my motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Second. We have a second by Mr. Alexander. All in favor? Motion carries. Sorry, no discussion. Okay, we'll move on to case number VR 1511. Call the case, please.
Yes, sir. Case number VR-15-11. Cynthia R. Middleton of Stockbridge, Georgia, requests a variance from development regulations for the property located at 1435 Highway 138 East in land lot 94 of the 11th District. Excuse me. The property consists of 1.955 plus or minus acres, and the request is for tractor trailer parking and is located in Commission District 4 and will be presented by Josephine Medina.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the board. In the application that I'm presenting to you today, the applicant's requesting a reduction of the minimum lot width from 175 feet to 150.09 feet. The property currently is, if you can look at the current zoning map on the overhead, zoned as R1. The reason for the request is for a rezoning that is running concurrently with this variance for the property to be rezoned from R1 to RA. Currently, the property meets all of the development regulations required for the R1 district. The request is to be able to meet the development regulations for the RA zoning district. And the request is for the parking and storage of a tractor trailer. Staff, through the criteria, staff believes that the applicant meets all of the criteria with the exception of whether the special circumstances are actually the actions of the applicant. Since the property currently meets all of the development regulations for R1, it can develop as currently as zoned. But since the applicant wishes to be able to park a tractor trailer on the property, which is only allowed in RA, this is what is creating these special circumstances. So staff recommends denial because it does not meet all the criteria for the variance. I will now answer any questions.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from the board for staff? Okay, if there's no questions from the board for staff, we'd like the applicant to come forward, please. Will you please state your name and address for the record?
My name is Cynthia R. Middleton, address 1435, Highway 138 East.
Okay, do you have anything you would like to add to staff comments?
Yes, well, the first thing is that really concerned me when I got the information in the mail is that the very reason that the staff says they deny it is the reason they called me. They called me up. I placed the application for the rezoning, and after I placed it, I got a phone call at home saying, hey, we were going over the documents. We realized you don't meet the minimum lot width. The only thing, what we suggest is you apply for a variance. And, you know, they told me what to do. I came back, applied for the variance. But then when I got the paperwork, the very reason I was told to apply for the variance is the reason they denied it, which I don't understand that. And then I was in the workshop, so a lot of the questions I can answer that you stated. Where the trailers are parked now, actually, when we went through the process, we had to get the lot surveyed, of course, and that's when we realized that we were encroaching on my neighbor's property. We have a very good relationship with Miss Linda Wolf. So her suggestion was, well, since you're encroaching, it's really on your benefit. This is my property. Put your trailers here. My property's RA. So where the trailers are is not my property. That's my neighbor, Linda Wolf, whose property is zone RA. So that's her property. It's not my property, which is R1. So, and the reason that we came in and applied is we initially got a citation for land disturbance. And that's when I met Miss Barbara Dresnick with the code enforcement. And when she came out to go over what the call was for, which was a land disturbance, it's because we cleared a bunch of shrubbery in our back. And I don't know who it bothered, maybe somebody in the back of the subdivision, I don't know. But when she came out for that, because she was there, you know, she couldn't just avoid the fact that my trucks were there. My husband's truck was there. So that's how the whole thing came about. We had no idea that the property wasn't zone R1. I printed some public records that I found before we even purchased the house, and everything said RA. So we were under the impression that it was RA. So we didn't even know we were doing anything wrong until she came out for the land disturbance. So that's what prompted us. She went through everything with me, and she actually looked and said, well, let's see what we can do to possibly, you know, remedy the situation. And she was the one that suggested the RA. She printed the code for me, gave it to me, so that's when I came down to the county. So what else? As far as, you know, allowing us to do it, I don't see, we've been parking there since December 2011. until, recent. It looks like we're parking there, but we're not. I noticed you say you didn't drive up on my property, which I appreciate, and you could. You have my blessing now if you need to. But if you would have drove up, you'd have seen where the surveyor, we purposely had him leave all the pins so you can clearly see that the trucks are on Ms. Linda's property, which is RA, not our property. And then also, I don't know if I'm getting ahead of myself, because it's a little bit confusing separating the zoning from the variance when it's so close together. But we are encroaching. That's when we found out we were encroaching on Ms. Linda's property, and that's why she told us to park here. It's fine with me. But as far as that driveway is concerned, I actually went a step farther and called Georgia DOT. They came out to my house. I met with Donald Wilkinson, and for their stand, he said for us not to do anything with the driveway, don't touch it until we come here. But he did tell me that the driveway has to be 4 feet in my property line, so the encroachment will completely go away. It will be a non-factor. Because in order for us to meet Georgia DOT's standard for the driveway, it needed to be 4 feet inside of my property line, which if that happens, the encroachment will completely go away. Because it's not paved, it's just gravel. It's just a matter of shifting the driveway over, which can be done. Another thing, I'm sorry. You guys were wondering about my husband's truck, how many. He's an owner-operator, but he owns 2 tractor trailers, and he owns 3 trailers. So we would like to be able to park all of them there. Another gentleman made a concern about what if they park behind the garage. That's exactly where we did park. So if you drove by, unless you turned around and looked, you couldn't even see the trucks there to begin with. They're only visible now because we can't park where we normally park because our land is RA. So we're parking on the side, our land is R1, so we're parking on that side where it's RA. So if you guys were to approve it, I would definitely like to speak or figure out what we can do with parking more than one, because he does have more than one tractor trailer, and in the future we possibly may buy one more, but we feel that we have plenty of land because my land goes so deep and he parks back, not up to the front of the house. Did I miss anything? I think that's it.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the board for the applicant?
I was with you until you said you're gonna park more than one. I want residents to be able to park their vehicle that they used for their income. But to me now, it seems like it's created a trucking business, which one of our board members has, and there was a concern about noise factor and that sort of thing, which makes me to believe now, how can one person drive 3 vehicles at the same time? He's probably going to have employees. And so I'm going to ask you the question, is there going to be employees in and out of that? And then the question to the staff, is there a limit to how many employees can come and go on an RA piece of property?
So if that is the case, then I'm tempted to say that might be a home occupation. If that is a home occupation, then any connection with commercial vehicles is not allowed. And that also includes not having employees coming in and out.
So hearing that, I would just. Okay, so the way that I took it in the planning session was that someone owned a vehicle, a tractor trailer, and they wanted to park it in their driveway. That I felt like that we could try as a board to help make it happen. But now I'm hearing you say that it's a little bit more than that. It's more than one tractor trailer. It's 2. You're possibly gonna get 3. So that makes me think that there's gonna be employees, things coming in and out. So as staff said, it's a different type scenario, and we have to we have to step back and say, whoa, wait a minute. We have to take a second look at it, because what in our mind, what we would want to approve, I would want to say to approve is, I want to give somebody the ability to be able to park their tractor trailer, if that's their livelihood, in their own driveway. And now I liked the clarification that you had as far as right now that they're parked on the neighbor's RA lot, which that's their business. It's nothing to do with me. And if they're giving you permission, it would be, the only thing that I see wrong with that was if whoever sold that property then you might have a situation where that next person wouldn't want you to do that. But that's, that's not for me to decide. I think now the biggest concern that we have, it kind of changed the whole dynamic of what I was thinking was happening and what you guys said that would possibly happen.
Okay.
And one of the board members did state their concern about noise factor, and now it's maybe a trucking company.
Okay.
And I don't know, I might have
Can I
have
respond?
concern about that.
Okay.
Well, I don't know, that's going to be up to the chairman.
Okay. You can respond quickly, but are there any additional questions for the applicant?
In an attempt to try to mitigate the circumstances, we had some lively discussion in there, and we really wanted you to be able to, to continue your employment, or your husband to be able to drive, but it really kind of put some of us aback when you say, well, 2 to 3. Might you be agreeable to parking one there or something like that to try to mitigate the circumstances versus going in the other direction? Because that's some real concern up here.
Okay. Go ahead and address this?
Yeah.
Okay, and I'll say this. My husband, for the last over a year, he's had 2 trucks. It's just his own, because he had one as a backup, because when his truck broke down, he was at home, he had one. So he got a second truck. But his regular truck wasn't giving him any problems. He's like, you know what, let me get a driver. So the second truck actually just got a driver. It's only been March of this year. So I guess we can probably work with the one, but what if because he had 2, up until March, both of those were his trucks. It's just if one was in the shop, he had another one where he didn't have to stop moving. So would there be a problem if one person had 2 trucks? Would that be?
The issue being, if she's saying that gets into employment where that other driver is coming and going, that's strictly prohibited. Mm-hmm. In order for your husband, I know how these things work out, instead of having parked both trucks there, he could drive one home like he would do, park it there and reside there, but not having the other driver come there in the second truck. That's what the concern is.
Okay. I mean, if that's what it had to be, that.
Additional questions from the board?
Yes, and I think this is a question to the staff, if I may. In looking at what the ULDC states, it would appear to me that it speaks of parking, storing, or maintaining any commercial vehicle is prohibited in residential subdivisions and all residential zoning districts, but RA, which is what they're trying to get to. But does the ordinance speak to just a, meaning one commercial vehicle, or is there an unlimited number? I guess I'm looking for an interpretation.
You stated what the ordinance says, but in addition to that, the ordinance also prohibits the parking of commercial vehicles in connection with the home-based business on residential property.
So for clarification, he owns his own business or he drives his own truck? Is there going to be a business out of that location?
Well, he's an owner-operator. He runs it under a company name rather than just his personal name, but he's an owner.
So that company address, is that residential address?
I'm not sure, but he'll be up in a minute because he has it filled up. I'm not sure. I don't know if I could turn and ask him since he...
Well, for clarity, he's an owner-operator. He owns the truck, but he does not pull someone else's trailer probably.
Yeah.
And that's how it kind of works out. But he is the owner of his business and those 2 trucks.
Right, so I'm trying to find out if the business that he has, there is a commercial business.
Right.
Do you have a
the
commercial?
office and the paperwork and the invoices are created there at the home office. Is that what you're saying? Right.
Well, he doesn't have to do invoices,
Okay.
but if he's looking for a load, he uses his own laptop.
Right.
So.
Okay, so the other employee that comes in, how does that work? How does he have an employee? You know what I'm saying? I guess if there's not a business, how does he have an employee? How does he pay that employee?
He pays the employee with the check. I mean,
Well,
all,
I'm saying
everything.
through the business. I mean, I guess what I'm trying to say is,
Yeah,
It's
I
a
mean,
business.
The company pays them, and then they pay the driver.
I mean, I get that. I guess what I'm trying to get at is, if it's a commercial business, you have to have a commercial business license in order for that to happen.
Okay. But he has an LLC, I guess that his company is an LLC. I don't know.
And is it run out of a home, is the question I'm asking.
I guess technically it would really out of his truck, but technically,
Yeah,
if you wanna.
Okay.
We have additional questions.
I believe that in the RA district, that you can have a home occupation in an accessory structure that is, that is the garage. So I think that he could have an employee come there and, do all his paperwork and, all of his business in that accessory structure.
Well, what Dante had said was, so if the physical address of that business is located there, it can't be tied with a commercial vehicle. So there can't be the person can't own a commercial vehicle and park it there, and also have a business from that residence as well, according to the ULDC.
So we would have to find out if there is a commercial business license and what the address of that
where
commercial
the physical
business
address is.
of the commercial business license. So if you're, okay, you're the chair, I don't have any
Well,
questions.
do we have any additional questions for the
I'm just
applicant?
confused.
Any additional questions for the applicant?
I have something here. I don't know if I should give it to you guys. My neighbor Linda with the RA property, I don't know if she took north, south, or whatever. The RA land next to me, she couldn't be here. She doesn't drive at night, but she gave me a letter that I don't know if I can read it or just give it.
We'll give you a chance to.
Okay.
Go ahead and bring it up.
Well, I'll let her read it.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah,
Because
you're
you
right.
only have one
Okay.
copy, I'll let her read that
Okay,
letter.
okay.
Okay? At this time, you may be seated, ma'am. At this time, I'd like to allot 10 minutes for those that would like to speak in favor of this case. And at this time, ma'am, you have 10 minutes to speak in favor of it, and you can read that letter at this time. As long as it's within the 10 minutes that's allotted.
Hi, I'm Barbara Perkins, 1455 Highway 138 East, Stockbridge, Georgia. I live right next door. There's never been a problem with the trucks coming and going. I'm home all day long, 24 hours a day. Up at night, I never know when they come and go. I have no issues with it. I'm the closest one to them. I didn't know there was a disturbance call, but the property that they cleaned up needed to be cleaned up.
Anything additional?
I'm sorry?
Would you like to add anything to
No.
that? Okay, all right. Anyone else would like to speak in favor of the case?
This letter is from my neighbor whose properties are she spoke with a couple of my other neighbors, and it's on their behalf. It says, "To whom it may concern, I am unable to attend the zoning meeting on September the 10th concerning Kendall and Cynthia Middleton's property. I am Linda Wolf, homeowner since 1981 at 1425 Highway 138 East Stockbridge. I am aware that the 1435 Highway 138 driveway encroaches my property. I am satisfied with the slight encroachment on the land as long as the Middleton family remains the owners." And by the way, I asked her to state it like that. My neighbors at 1454 Highway 138, that's directly across the street from me, south, I think, and 1381 Highway 138, and myself have talked concerning the zoning. We are in very much support of Kendall Middleton having access to park his tractor-trailer truck on his property. Thank you, Linda Wolf.
Okay, thank you. Are there anyone else that would like to speak in favor of this case?
Hello, my name is Kendall Middleton. I'm at 1435 Highway 138 East, Stockbridge, Georgia, 30281. I pretty much want to add, we lived at the residence for like I think it's been 2 years, over 2 years now, going on 3 years, and we've never had any problems with our neighbors as far as noise. The trucks, if they come in and go, it's typically we leave out on Monday, we're not back in until the weekend. Sometimes we stay out longer than 1 week, maybe 2 weeks. So we never had any problems with noise. As far as the address, I mean, I'm an owner operator, but I'm an independent owner operator. So that means I run under my own authority, and I have one subcontractor that I pretty much drive my other truck for me. That's pretty much all I have to say. I mean, I really haven't had any problems as far as noise and stuff with the neighbors. I really love living in Henry County and our address. I mean, if anybody knows the area, before we moved there, the house was covered up with trees. You couldn't even see the house. Some people didn't even know our house was there. So in the last 2 years, we have made a lot of improvements to that lot. And we can tell because our taxes keep going up every year. Since we've been there, we've done nothing but improved the lot. The gravel driveway, I mean, we can get that, paved. DOT wanted that paved once we get the approval. Pretty much as far as the address, I mean, the address for DOT, I mean, that can be, I can change that if that's a problem. That's not an issue. And pretty much that's all I have, unless you guys have a question for me.
Okay. Anyone else would like to add to, anyone else in favor of this case? Okay. Anyone would like to speak? At this time, we'd like to allot 10 minutes for those that would like to speak in opposition of the case. Anyone would like to speak in opposition of the case? Okay, I don't see anyone coming forward. Would the applicant come forward, please? Okay. Does the board have any additional questions for the applicant?
I guess I just have a comment. So the variance, basically, we're kind of did like this, and we should be focused like this, because the variance is only asking a 75-foot to 150-foot minimum width, and that's to accommodate. And I guess when the zoning request comes up, we can ask more questions and put conditions on. So, and I just noticed the lot size looks like it gets bigger in the back, because it goes from 150.
Narrow at the front, but
narrow
if
in
it
the
was
front,
flipped around, we wouldn't have
a
this
problem. You're right. So it's it's narrow in the front,
And wide in the
and then I know there has to be a turning radius, and then it's more in the back. And I did want to make a comment about the disturbance. I know if it's less than 1 acre, they don't have to have a permit, but I guess because they were on 2 acres, that's what the problem was.
Any land disturbance needs to be, go through our building department and our plan review, just in case, because sometimes, depending on if they're near state waters, that may affect whether or not they need an LDP.
Okay. So, so I guess I didn't understand about the 4 foot with the DOT requirement, 4 foot driveway. Can DOT, is there a requirement for a commercial driveway, and what is that requirement?
I'm not sure what Georgia DOT's requirement is. The only thing that I saw on the plat, it looked like the radius in front of it overlapped to the adjoining property. So I'm not sure if that's what the 4 foot is, or if they're looking for an additional 4 foot in width. If you're talking about a driveway for a tractor trailer truck, I would think it would require a wider width driveway than just a standard driveway like for a car. So I'm not sure.
So I guess my question is, should we be concerned that where this is drawn and it's encroaching on, I can't, it's hard for me to imagine, because I know how things happen. Neighbors sometimes get little spats, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, you can't use my property. And I have to kind of base it upon, and I'm glad that she's got a good neighbor that's letting her do that, but if something were to happen, I've got to kind of look at the future to see, worst case scenario, how you're protected and then your neighbor's protected if they decide they don't want you encroaching, and that's kind of how you probably need to look at it. Is there enough room for that tractor trailer to get into, maybe a driveway if you could just all of it be on your property? If you're RA and all of it can be on your property, is there enough room? That's the question I have.
That's why I called Georgia DOT and Donald Wilkinson, that's his name, the gentleman that came out.
Is that Georgia DOT?
Mm-hmm, Georgia DOT. He came out and met with me. We walked my property. He kind of showed to me exactly how it needed to be. He said the driveway, it's on the proposed corrected in the top corner. That's why that's there, because that's based off of what Georgia DOT told me.
Is that still encroaching on the neighbors?
No,
though?
that wouldn't be. That's proposed.
Oh,
that wouldn't be encroaching. So he said my driveway needs to be 4 feet within my property line with 50-foot flare, 25-foot or 50-foot flares on both sides. So that's why you see those big wide turns there, because he said the flares aren't owned by me or my neighbors. They're owned by the county. So he told me the driveway itself, meaning just the straight part, needs to be 4 feet. 4 feet within my property line, but the flares, I can't remember if it was 25 or 50 feet, but it should be on this paper.
It says 50.
So if you look at my survey, it's encroaching, but that's the way it should be. That's up there in the corner.
So how to state
Shows a
that?
detail here on the plan of what the driveway entrance
requirements of DOT.
should be like.
Okay.
So they could just come in off that stub, that's at the south end of their property, and, put a commercial driveway of, say, 12 feet, from that stub out.
Okay. Does the board have any additional questions for the applicant? You may be seated. Okay. Well, I have one thing I'd like to ask Dante. Do we need to add that letter to the record?
That would be good for us to add to our file, just to have
Okay.
for future reference. If we can get a copy of that, that would be great.
Yeah, if you would pass that on to staff and add that to the record. Okay, at this time, I'd like to call the case.
Case number VR-15-11, Cynthia R. Middleton of Stockbridge, Georgia, requests a variance from development regulations for property located at 1435 Highway 138 East in Land Lot 94 of the 11th District. The property consists of 1.955 plus or minus acres, and the request is for tractor trailer parking, and is located in Commission District 4 and was presented by Josephine Medina.
Okay, we have the case. Do we have a motion?
I make a motion that we approve VR 1511, based, let's see, with the condition that the driveway and the turn-in not encroach upon the neighbor's property, but meet all the requirements of the Georgia DOT.
Okay, and trucks, do we have any?
That's going to be under the zoning.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? I'm sorry, it's been seconded by Mr. Babb.
Oh, Lord have mercy.
We have a motion and a second by Mr. Babb. Any discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries. Okay. We're here, case number RZ 15-02. I'm sorry, 09.
Case number RZ-15-09, Dr. Peter Wizuzu of Stockbridge, Georgia, requests a rezoning from R3 to C3 for property located at 3760 and 3750 North Henry Boulevard in Land Lot 64 of the 12th District. The property consists of 0.743 plus or minus acres, and the request is for a medical office. It is located in Commission District 4 and will be presented by Adrian Center.
Good evening again. The applicant is requesting to rezone the subject properties located at 3750 and 3760 North Henry Boulevard from R3, which is single-family residence, to C3, which is highway commercial. The applicant is proposing to use an existing structure for a doctor's office for a small outpatient practice with telemedicine capabilities. Standard doctor offices, medical clinics, health services, and medical training are all permitted in Henry County's designated commercial zoning districts C1, C2, C3, and as well as OI. The submitted site plan survey does show no plans for cosmetic improvements or renovation. The area appears to be transitional in nature, however, the property abuts commercial and residential properties. The future land use map designates majority of the parcels near the intersection of North Henry Boulevard to be zoned commercial. This area is transitioning to a commercial strip progressing east and west along North Henry Boulevard. There are commercially zoned properties including C1, which is neighborhood commercial, C2, which is general commercial, and as well as C3, which is highway commercial in the area, providing a precedence for the rezoning. The proposed development is consistent with the purpose of the C3 zoning district, which is to provide areas for commercial activities which provide products and services that require locations with highest level of access to major highways and regional transportation systems. Approval of the requested rezoning should have minimal effects on the character of the neighborhood, particular area, or community, as the subject property is located within an area that is currently developing into a major commercial node along the vicinity of intersection Highway 42 and North Henry Boulevard. The subject properties at this time are not proposed to be redeveloped. However, at a later date, the applicant may request to extend or modify the existing building located at 3750 North Henry Boulevard. 3760 North Henry Boulevard does not have a structure on the property and is considered vacant. North Henry Boulevard is also shown in the Henry County CTP as proposed future widening candidate. So any future building improvements are to be beyond the current minimum front setback line, as well as any other future non-building related improvements. Be located away from North Henry Boulevard right away as far as practically possible. The request is consistent with the future land use map designation and policies of the comprehensive plan, as well as the intent of the C3 zoning district. Planning staff has recommended approval of the requested rezoning with one amendment to one of those conditions. We have amended condition number 4, as this issue was addressed with the variance request, and so it has been taken care of there. At this time, I'd like to address, or if you have any questions, I can answer at this time. Okay.
Okay, so you took out number 4, I was gonna leave it in and just put a sentence in there, except for where it is not, because I had a condition on the variance about 21-foot buffer.
Yes.
And so if you take all that out, I would like for it to be put back in, and just because the variance is gonna say, except for the portion where the building is. So
Okay.
there should be still consist of a 40-foot undisturbed buffer.
Okay.
Around the rest of the property. So I'm just gonna recommend that stay in there.
Okay.
Okay. Any additional questions for our staff? Okay, thank you. At this time, I'd like the applicant to come back forward. State your name and address for the record again, please.
Hi, I'm Dr. Peter Mwiziza, 3750 North Henry Boulevard, Stockbridge, Georgia, 30281.
Do you have anything additional you'd like to add to staff comments?
No, sir.
Okay. Does the board have any questions for the applicant? Okay, you may be seated, sir. At this time, we'd like to allot 10 minutes for those that would like to speak in favor of the case. 10 minutes for those that would like to speak in favor of the case. If there's no one, we would like to allot 10 minutes for those who are speaking in opposition of the case. Okay. Will you return, sir? Come forward. Does the board have any additional questions for the applicant? Okay. At this time, we'd like to call the case. You may be seated, sir.
Case number RZ-15-09. Dr. Peter Wizuzu of Stockbridge, Georgia, requests a rezoning from R3 single-family residence to C3 highway commercial for the property located at 3760 and 3750 North Henry Boulevard and land lot 64 of the 12th District. The property consists of 0.743 plus or minus acres, and the request is for a medical office, and is located in Commission District 4 and was presented by Adrian Center.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
I have a motion to approve this zoning request with all 5 recommendations given by staff. With number 4, reading in its original content except for the first sentence, add at the end of properties, except where the variance gives an exception next to the existing building.
Okay. We have a motion. Do we have a second? Have a second by Mr. Alexander. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries. Okay. Back on you.
Okay. Please call the case.
Case number RZ-15-12. Rayco Greenwood Business Park LLC of Atlanta, Georgia requests a rezoning from M1 light manufacturing to RM multifamily residential for the property located west of the intersection of Highway 155 South and Greenwood Industrial Parkway in land lots 254 and 255 of the 7th District. The property consists of 40.297 plus or minus acres, and the request is for the development of a multifamily development and is located in Commission District 3 and will be presented by Josephine Medina.
The application I'm presenting to you today, the applicant's requesting a rezoning from M1 to RM. The purpose of this request is for the development of apartments. The property consists of 40.297 plus or minus acres. On the current zoning map, it indicates that the property is zoned M1 and is surrounded to the east by a 8-acre commercially zoned property, and then to the north is light manufacturing M1 and the R3 subdivision of Hunter's Run. To the south are RM zoned properties that are that is the Waterford Commons, and these are townhomes. To the west is the planned development single-family residential, which contains R2 pods. This is Summer Lake subdivision. And to the west is also M1 light manufacturing, which is currently vacant. And to the east, again, we have C2, and then across the street, we have M1, which is light manufacturing and is currently used as warehousing. And if we look at the future land use map, it shows the property as being zoned, as being designated as industrial and commercial, which is inconsistent with the current request. There is also a request to change the future land use map from from commercial and industrial to high density residential, which would allow a density of 6 to 16 units per acre. The request is also inconsistent with the future comprehensive plan policies that include increasing ratio of jobs to housing and protecting industrial land uses from encroachment by residential developments. If we now take a look at the site plan, it shows proposed 12 three-story apartment buildings, which would be a total of 275 apartment units. This would be a net density of 7.3 units per acre. The impact on adjacent properties would be minimal, comparable to what the property is currently zoned as light manufacturing. These impacts for RM zoning include increased traffic congestion and school enrollment. The property is currently located within the limited water protection area of the Indian Creek Long Branch Reservoir watershed. This means that it's limited to a 25% impervious surface, according to ULDC. The site plan indicates 27.6 impervious surface and would need to meet section 3.04.13.c to be able to increase up to 75% impervious surface. And this can be reviewed more in detail during the plan review phase. It also shows a minimum setback of impervious surface of 100, and this requires, according to ULDC, 150 feet setback. Staff recommends denial based on its inconsistency with several of the 2030 comprehensive plan policies. Staff also recommends 7 conditions. If the board so wishes to approve the rezoning. I will now be happy to answer any questions the board may have.
Do the board members have any questions for staff at this time? Okay, hearing none, if the applicant can please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Madam Chair, members of the board, I'm Bruce McFarland, and I'm here on behalf of the applicant. Just to acquaint you with a few quick facts about the property, it's 40.3 acres, currently zoned M1, light manufacturing, and we're asking to rezone it to RM for multifamily residential, which we're asking for apartments. The future land use map currently shows an industrial and commercial designation. The road access is from Highway 155, which I believe is categorized, at least according to the Henry County DOT, as a major arterial. We are hoping to get 275 units with a net dwelling unit per acre of 7.3. The zoning history on this is in 1988, 57 acres were rezoned from RA to a PD, which included a pod that was for RM and an M1 pod. This property, the subject property, is the part of the property that was the M1 pod. In 2009, 8 acres of what was that M1 pod was rezoned from M1 to C2, and that's the property that is out in the front, adjacent to 155. The request is, what we're asking for, RM, would be inconsistent with what the future land use map currently shows, and so we have concurrently filed a request to amend that as well, so that we would be in compliance with that. The staff has examined 9 criteria that they are charged with examining in each one of these situations, and by which you're supposed to look through and kind of view this property in connection with this request. The first one, the consistency with the comprehensive plan, I just spoke to that. It's currently not in compliance with it, but we hope that we could get that situated where it would be in compliance with it. Moving on to according to the 2030 comprehensive plan, the subject property would be a good location for high-density residential. The comprehensive plan provides that high-density residential as a land use category is an appropriate transition between the high-intensity commercial and industrial uses that surround the property and lower-intensity residential uses. Property is a good fit for high-density residential in this instance because of the uses surrounding it, some of which you can find on the page 2. It shows the immediately adjacent properties, but back on the last part of your package, it shows some of the other neighboring, although not adjacent, but neighboring uses. Thank you. And I would imagine a lot of you are probably familiar with that location anyway. Some uses nearby are car lots, strip malls, warehouses, and less intense, but still multifamily residential property. The comprehensive plan further defines the high-density residential as appropriate for mixed-use developments developed in areas where there's a high degree of accessibility to major arterials and state highways, such as along I-75 and interstate interchange areas. The subject property is a match for that as well, and that's part of the comprehensive plan. What the comprehensive plan states is a good location for RM property. And the subject property is, I think, a very good match for this definition of the comprehensive plan insofar as it is on a major arterial, 155, and I'd say it's probably a quarter mile from the I-75 interchange. So it really fits the definition of the comprehensive plan. As far as criteria point 2, that is the relation that the proposed amendment bears to the purpose of the overall zoning scheme. The staff concluded that the subject property would help carry out the purposes of the RM district. Staff also set out some requirements from the RM zoning district in the watershed area, most of which our plan already meets, and all of which we understand we will have to comply with. I'm referring to the reduction in the impervious area, which I believe we currently show at 27.6%, and it has to be reduced to 25, unless we meet some of those. We may be able to increase it, but based on some other factors. But if we can't, we do understand that we have to reduce that to be in compliance, and we'd have to get it down to the 25%. One of the other things that our current plan does not show that would be in compliance with all of the regulations and requirements is that we're showing a 100-foot buffer from, I think it's a water source, or the full pool water or something of that nature, and it's shown on the yes, thank you. It's shown on the plan right here, and it's showing a 100-foot buffer, and the requirements are that it show a 150-foot buffer. So obviously we'll have to make some changes to the plan to accommodate that, but I think we can rearrange some of these property or some of these buildings in a manner that would allow us to accommodate that requirement. Excuse me. Criteria point 3 is the potential positive effects of an amendment on the character of the proposed zoning district, a particular neighborhood, area, or community. Staff points out that the addition of an apartment complex in this area would likely be a positive impact on the current commercial properties and also on the commercially zoned properties that have yet to be developed. Criteria 4 point the physical conditions of the site relative to its capability to be developed as requested. Again, that's a situation where staff points out that we currently are not meeting the requirement for the impervious surface area, and we don't have a large enough buffer. But I already stated we understand what we have to do in regard to that. Criteria point 5, the impact upon adjacent property owners should the request be approved. Staff concludes, and I agree, that if the property is rezoned RM, the impact on the property's neighbors, not just the adjacent ones, but all around, would be comparable or less than what would be expected under the current zoning of light manufacturing. I have I don't know what you'd call it exactly, but it's uses allowed in the zoning districts, and I'm sure y'all have a copy of it as well. And it provides for a number of uses. I won't go into all of them, but you can find it. It's the section 2.03.00, and you can look and see the different type of uses that are allowed under the M1 designation, and I think those are definitely a little more problematic with people surrounding that area than would be an apartment complex. So we'd ask you to pay particular attention to that. Criteria points 6 and 7 regards the potential impact of the proposed amendment on county infrastructure. Staff notes that the water and sewage is available but might require an off-site sanitary line and potentially the acquirement of some easements, both of which would come at the developer's cost, not going to cost the county anything. And staff further noted that any of the GDOT requirements, we're going to have to deal with GDOT and meet their requirements. So that shouldn't be anything of the concern of this board. We have to please them, and there isn't any way around that. The merits of the requested change in zoning relative to other guidelines and policies for the development. Staff acknowledges that the property's location off of the major arterial and the I-75 interchange does fit the description provided by the comprehensive plan for RM locations. Finally, criteria point 9, the ability of the subject property to be developed as it is presently zoned. We acknowledge that the property could be developed as it is presently zoned, and like I said, there's a number of uses that would fit this zoning designation, but the fact is the property's been zoned M1 since 1988, roughly 27 years, and it hadn't been developed under its current zoning. Staff ultimately recommended that the board deny the request because it is inconsistent with several of the comprehensive plan policies. The policies that the staff is referring to, I believe, are shown at the end of criteria 3 in your package. I don't know how many total criteria there are, but they're only suggesting that we're inconsistent with 3 of the criteria as far as I'm aware. The first one is 6.2, land use. They don't list a reason why our project would be inconsistent with that, but what it says is that the criteria, you want to protect future industrial, warehouse distribution, and office areas from encroachment by residential development. And I understand that might be a laudable policy. However, granting the request is also consistent with a number of other policies that are listed in the comprehensive plan, such as including where RM properties should be located, which, as I said earlier, this is a great location for this according to the comprehensive plan. The next policy that we could be well, not necessarily in violation of, but we might be frustrating that policy a little bit, is 6.3, economic development. And it states, identify a level of need for industrial and commercial land and maintain an inventory of available and appropriately zoned properties for the purpose of recruiting new businesses to Henry County. Seek to balance the supply of housing and employment in our community and consider their locations with relation to one another. Certainly a plausible policy. I don't know how exactly you would go about doing that, but I don't have anything to say that this shouldn't be something that we try to do. But I don't know how granting our rezoning would frustrate that policy. I don't know how it's going to mess up the balance between the supply of housing and employment in our community. I think that most commercial and industrial, along with I think most commercial and industrial development follows the population. I don't think it's there in advance of the population. I think they have basically a synergistic relationship with the citizens around there. I don't think it's build it and they will come. I think they look at the number of rooftops and the people that are there, and they decide that that's a good location for them. So I don't see how that would destroy the balance. I think the balance is a natural balance. It's that synergy. Finally, the last one last policy that we might frustrate is the housing policy 6.6. And it states, support development decisions that promote better jobs, housing balance, increasing the ratio of jobs to houses to allow residents to live closer to their jobs. Again, a good policy to have, but I don't see how we're frustrating it. I won't repeat what I said about the synergy of business and population, but I think that, that runs together. Finally, just in conclusion, I would ask you to review the criteria by which you should consider this rezoning, and I hope that you'll grant our request.
Okay, thank you. Do the board members have any questions for the applicant?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Risher?
I'm sorry.
Yes, has the Henry County Development Authority been any help in finding possible users of this property under the current zoning?
As it's currently zoned?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I don't know the answer to that, Mr. Risher. I can try to find that for you. I don't have it tonight, but
okay.
I'm assuming they would use whatever means are available to try and market the property, and if that's one that's available, and it should be, I would suspect that they had already done something with it, but I can't guarantee that happened.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions, Mr. Alexander?
Yes, in the pre-application package, there's reference to a DRI, Direct Regional Impact, in 2009. In regards to that, and I guess this is a DRI project too, as well?
No, that has a 5-year maximum.
Okay.
So when the property C2 was rezoned, 5 years after that, it no longer is considered a DRI project.
Okay, so this is just for illustration purposes that we have because it's listed here as site plan DRI 1955 on the site plan. Is that what we just have for illustration purposes?
I'm not sure. I think I think this was part of the site plan that was presented back in 2008,
okay.
And it's just been modified, but they left that, those things on there.
Okay, I mean, you spoke to 750 units being in there, so pretty much this is the plan, right? I mean, if you know how many units there are going to be.
It's been modified some.
Okay.
I'm not saying that it's the exact same plan, but it has been modified.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And there was some concern. I first met with Stacy, and there was some current concern that there may be a need for the DRI, but I think we concluded that it was not necessary.
Okay, Mr.
Yes.
Nelson?
Yes, if this project is approved, at what point do you expect it to take off?
My understanding is it would basically be a 2-year project, and I think they would go as soon as they could. I can find out the answer, but my understanding of it was as soon as we got permission, then we would begin.
Okay, Mr. Head?
You stated that in building these apartments that it would be for the area, and most of those jobs there are warehouses. So will the apartment fit the jobs? You know, are you reading me what I'm saying?
I'm not sure I understand your question.
Okay, most of them are minimum wage jobs. So the apartment, you're saying that you're gonna build them so that the workers, if I'm understanding what you said, would be able to afford to rent these apartments?
Well, I think maybe I wasn't very clear in the way I was trying to present the fact that we do try to balance, or I think it will help balance or keep the balance of workers versus employers, and industrial and commercial development. I don't think what we're proposing to do is going to harm that balance. That's not to say that everybody that goes to that's going to have a place there is going to walk to work at one of the places next to it. I mean, I would like to think that there would be some people that would be that lucky, but I think that we're talking about employment throughout Henry County, not just the neighboring uses.
I think I would have to disagree with the ratio between business and home ownership. Henry County basically is a county of home ownership versus business, and we have the equation of home ownership versus business is far outweighs the business that's available. So a lot of the residents have to leave Henry County to go to other counties to work. To say that you're building this to accommodate an employment need really would not, I think, carry over to a true statement as far as the ratio between what's available here for residents, because most residents have to leave the county to get employment. There's just not that much. So I don't know that I can agree with you on that statement.
Again, probably I wasn't very clear. That wasn't necessarily what I was trying to promote. What I'm saying is I don't think that us building these apartments is going to destroy or frustrate the policy of trying to have a balance of workers versus jobs.
And I would say I have to disagree with that statement, but that's my opinion, on that statement. What you're saying, you don't think that it's going to infringe upon that policy, and I'm just saying for a county that's looking to bring in more business versus more, not that we don't want residents, but what I'm saying, building more homes or places for residents, we're looking for it to bring more business in. So that was my only comment about that. So anyone else have any other questions for the applicant? All right, Mr. Risher.
Is your client, Racco Greenwood Business Park, are they also affiliated with the Greenwood Industrial Park that's on
Not that I'm aware of.
155?
Excuse me. Not that I'm aware of, Mr. Risher. I think that's the name they chose because of the location of the property.
Okay.
Any other questions for the applicant from board members? Okay, you may be seated.
Thank you.
At this time, we'll hear those that are in favor of this case. We'll give you 10 minutes to speak in favor of the case. Okay, and I didn't see anyone coming up, so I will open the floor up to those who speak in opposition of the case. Okay, I didn't see anyone else coming up. I'm going to ask the applicant to come up one more time, just in case one of the board members have a last-minute question they need to ask you. Any board members have any questions for staff or applicant at this time before we call the case? Okay, we don't have any other comments or questions, so let's call the case, please.
Case number RZ-15-12, Racco Greenwood Business Park LLC of Atlanta, Georgia, requests a rezoning from M1 Light Manufacturing to RM multifamily residential for the property located west of the intersection of Highway 155 South and Greenwood Industrial Parkway in land lots 254 and 255 of the 7th District. The property consists of 40.297 plus or minus acres, and the request is for the development of a multifamily development and is located in Commission District 2 and was presented by Josephine Medina.
Do you have a motion for this case? Mr.
I
Richard?
recommend we follow the staff's recommendation for denial of this request.
Okay, I have a motion for denial. Do I have a second? I have a second by Mr. Head. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by raising your hand. Motion carried. Our next case, please.
Case number RZ-15-13. Kelly Green Acres LP of Hampton, Georgia, requested rezoning from RA Residential Agricultural to C3 Highway Commercial for property located at the southeast corner of the intersection of Willow Lane and Bridges Road in Land Lot 130 of the 7th District. The property consists of 7.439 plus or minus acres, and the request is for a commercial development and is located in Commission District 3 and will be presented by Stacy Jordan.
Good evening, Madam Chair,
Good evening, Stacy.
board members. The request before you tonight is a request for rezoning for 7.439 acres at the intersection of Willow Lane and Bridges Road as indicated on the overhead. The property is the southeast quadrant of this intersection that's shown by the green hatched marks. You'll notice that on the current zoning map as displayed, the property indicated by red to the west of the subject property is zoned C2, which is a general commercial zoning district. The properties to the north on both the northeast corner and the northwest corner are indicated in pink on the current zoning map. The pink stands for planned development. So all of Pembroke Park was zoned together, and these two corners are a C2 pod within the planned development. So we have a situation where the subject property is on one corner. All the other three corners are all zoned for C2 general commercial uses. The aerial map shows the subject property hatched in green. To the west, the property is undeveloped. It's largely pine trees. To the north, you can see the large development at Pembroke Park, and that the two corners are not yet developed. So we have a situation where the properties in this area are zoned and yet undeveloped. The subject property takes access. Actually, the subject property has no driveways and is itself vacant at the current time. But the property has frontage on Willow Lane and Bridges Road. Willow Lane and Bridges Road both are classified as collector roads on Henry County's functional road classification. And collector roads connect major arterials. The applicant's request for C3, which is a highway commercial zoning district, is intended, the C3 zoning district is intended for land uses which has the highest concentration of access to major highways and regional transportation systems, and this site does not meet that criteria. For this reason, the staff has considered recommending denial of the applicant's request for C3 and rather recommending approval of a rezoning for C2 with 9 conditions. The future land use map currently designates the subject property for high-density residential uses. And high-density residential uses are those between 6 and 16 dwelling units per acre, which would allow a typical apartment complex. Because the future land use map does not support the applicant's request for C3, the applicant has an associated request to change the future land use map to commercial. So staff is recommending denial of the applicant's request for C3 and approval of C2 with 9 conditions. The first condition states, the future land use map shall designate the subject property for commercial. Number 2, the entire 7.439 plus or minus acre site shall be platted as one commercial subdivision. with all of the requirements thereof, including a master sign plan. Number 3, the commercial subdivision shall be limited to 1 access point on Bridges Road and 1 access point on Willow Lane. These access points will be shared by each lot. The access points shall meet the minimum spacing requirements of the Unified Land Development Code, which is Henry County Zoning Code. Be located such that the minimum intersection sight distance is met per the road's posted speed limit, and shall have a deceleration lane acceleration taper designed and constructed to HC DOT standards, and that's the county DOT standards. Number 4, a requirement for left turn lanes will be determined using the Georgia Department of Transportation driveway and encroachment manual. The possible requirement for a left turn lane from Bridges Road or Willow Lane or both will depend upon the usage of the commercial subdivision and the related projected traffic generated by the usage type and size. And what this means is that today, the applicant is requesting rezoning for future commercial development. And so we don't know what this property will be zoned for or what the end users will be in the future. But a 7.4 acre tract could be split up into many lots. And so it's the recommendation of staff that it be platted together as one commercial subdivision and that the traffic be evaluated as the development continues to determine whether left turn lanes shall be required by the county DOT. Number 5, the owner or developer shall preserve 10 feet of additional right-of-way all along the commercial subdivision's frontage on Bridges Road and Willow Lane. Setback requirements shall be referenced to the preserved right-of-way. So each property that's split into this commercial subdivision will have its own front setback line from the right-of-way. Because the additional right-of-way should be preserved, that setback line should be referenced to the new right-of-way, which would include the preserved area. Number 6, a 5-foot no vehicular access easement will be placed on those lots abutting Willow Lane and or Bridges Road all along the right-of-way of Willow Lane and Bridges Road. What this means is that the commercial subdivision is limited to 1 access point on Bridges Road and 1 access point on Willow Lane, and there will not be driveways connecting each individual lot to these main collector roads. Number 7, a minimum 5-foot wide sidewalk shall be constructed along Willow Lane and Bridges Road, providing pedestrian access to each of the lots abutting Willow Lane and or Bridges Road, and from each of the lots abutting Willow Lane and or Bridges Road to the location where crosswalks across Bridges Road and Willow Lane will be located, meeting the Americans with Disabilities Act standards. This condition anticipates the future improvement of Willow Lane and Bridges Road and anticipates a time where there will be crosswalks at this intersection. Also, as a potential C2 general commercial development, there could be retail uses, there could be office uses, there could be service uses, and these uses will likely draw even a pedestrian base. And so there should be accommodations provided along Bridges Road and Willow Lane for this pedestrian access. And so this condition attempts to provide that accommodation. Number 8 says the buffer requirement along the property line shared with residential property shall be met as determined by the building and plan review staff, including being located outside of any utility easement. Now, the reason that this condition is added, because you'll note from the illustrated site plan, this is Willow Lane, this is Bridges Road, this is the 7.4 acre site. This shaded area is a 75-foot power line easement that approximates the property line. Nothing can be planted in this utility easement, and yet, because the subject property abuts residentially zoned property, a 40-foot buffer is required with specific plantings as required by Henry County zoning code. This condition states and clarifies that the buffer will be placed outside of this utility easement. And finally, condition number 9 states, primary ground signage for the commercial subdivision shall consist of a monument-based sign or signs that is consistent in design, constructed of brick, stone, stucco, or any combination thereof, and shall not exceed 8 feet in height. And I'd be pleased to answer any questions.
Do board members have any questions for staff at this time? Okay, we need that. Hearing none, if I can ask the applicant to please come forward and state your name for the record.
Good evening, staff.
Good evening.
My name is Butch Springer. I'm at 785 New Morning Drive, Hampton, Georgia. And we are asking for a request initially for a C3 zoning. And we would, I guess, like to maybe have the opportunity to take a parcel inside maybe for a C3 use if possible. I understand where staff's at with the recommendations. We don't have a problem really with the recommendation of being the C2, the C2, but we do have some issues, as I said, with some of the conditions that are placed on it, being that at this present time, we're not sure exactly what proposed use is going to be. We've had somebody come to us wanting a convenience store on the corner. So if we did a convenience store of that type on the corner, we didn't really want to limit ourselves with not knowing how the rest of it's going to turn out. In the way I think a couple of these items is that we're kind of restricted to one access point, being everybody, I guess, come in through the collector. If you have the one corner sold first, per se, without having, I guess what I'm getting is you want us to have a master plan drawn out before the next one so that that's approved before. I don't have to have it, quote, now, correct?
Right.
So if we have this master plan drawn out, it may be such that, but I guess we'll still fall back. So if I have to funnel everything through the corner is what you're saying, correct? Because reading your minutes, you're telling me I have to have everything funneled through right here at the corners.
And Madam
If
Chair,
that's
would you
one
want me to
access point
respond?
for each road? That's very restrictive.
At this time, what we're doing is the board is going to be asking you questions, and so you're asking staff questions, and I'm not sure of the protocol of that, Dante. I'm sorry. Of the protocol, he's asking staff questions about, I guess, clarifying the conditions.
I'm sorry, I'll hush and then.
He should address
whatever.
the board, and then the board can ask staff to respond.
Okay.
Okay.
So, I didn't want to
That's-
be rude and interrupt you,
I
but this
apologize.
is, this is your,
Okay.
what you're doing here is giving information to the board in addition to the comments that staff has made. So if you don't have any other comments to the board then the board will ask the questions that they need
Sure.
to ask of you.
Please.
Okay? So board members, do you have any questions for the applicant?
Yes, I do.
Okay, Mr. Nelson.
As in the planning session, staff has recommended going to a C2. Do you have a problem, or are you in position to accept the C2 and move forward, or would you, what's your recommendation?
I think I have the authority to accept a C2, yes, sir.
Okay.
All right, any other questions from board members for the applicant? They don't have any, Mr. Risher, I'm sorry.
I think referring to condition number 3, where it says that the commercial development shall be limited to one access point on Bridges Road and one on Willow Lane, I don't think that the exact location of those access points can actually be determined tonight. It's, you know, it's going to be based on, well, I guess where the first user goes in, that would, you know, set the tone. But even if you have several lots, they could be all through one access point, you know, have shared, you know, driveways, you know, and parking areas, so to speak. So I think that's kind of what staff intended, that, you know, that there be an integrated, you know, parking and access areas, like on, well, like one example that comes to my mind is on Jonesboro Road, the Magnolia Plaza. All those parking areas are integrated, so you don't have to go through one driveway and out another on Jonesboro Road. So I think that was the intent.
Yes, sir. So, for example, and you're absolutely right, this is not something that we have to figure out tonight. But as an example, if a gas station were to locate on the corner, and they, for example, would like to split out this area for their site, well, they would not be allowed to have immediate access to either Bridges Road or Willow Lane. There would, as part of this commercial subdivision, there would be a 5-foot no vehicular access easement all along this right-of-way, and there would only be one access point for the subdivision off of Willow and one access point for the subdivision off of Bridges. So they would have to share access with any other lots that may develop in the future. And that should maintain the level of service on these collector roads by limiting the access points. And that's actually one of the policies of the county's comprehensive plan. If you look on page 4 under criteria point 8, policy T, as in transportation 10, says manage access along collector and arterial streets. And so requiring a commercial subdivision and limiting the access to one on Bridges Road and one on Willow Lane should accomplish that policy that's part of our comprehensive plan.
And then they could still have their own internal circulation within the private properties or private, you know, driveways of those parking areas.
Yes, sir.
You're right.
Any other questions for the applicant from board members? Mr. Richards?
What kind of uses have you envisioned at this point, you know, that you might, you know, put on these properties?
Honestly, we really don't know. Originally, we thought it was already, because of the same owners that own this piece, on the other piece on the opposite corner of Bridges and Willow. They own that 155 that abuts I-75, and that's already zone C2. And we had originally thought that all of it at one time, we saw it was all zone C2. So we didn't even think we had to go through this process of rezoning. And I guess somewhere along the line, we thought we had saw it, but long story short, we didn't. And so then when we were approached by some folks about possibly selling it, that's when we realized that it actually wasn't rezoned C2 to what use we needed to be done. So to answer your question, I wish we did, and that's where we really don't. And that's where I didn't really want to apologize for my behavior, but I wasn't sure. I didn't want to limit the property to where if we cut the corner out, everything flows through. I understand to connect that once you're inside, if we got another road, coming in, but taking that main corner, I didn't want everything to have to funnel through that one corner. One access on Willow, one access to Bridges. Once the corner's gone, because the corner might be gone and then the rest of it may be there. So we're not really sure. That's why we really weren't wanting to have a, quote, planning a commercial subdivision, because we weren't exactly sure what we were doing on the interior of it. Wish we could, but.
Any other questions from board members?
Not now.
Okay, you may be seated. Thank you.
Okay.
At this time, we will entertain comments from the audience for those who want to speak in favor of the case? Okay, I don't see anybody coming up, so we'll entertain 10 minutes for those who want to speak in opposition of the case. Please come forward and state your name and address for the record.
Yes, my name is Joseph Jackson. Address is 550 Willow Lane. We're actually the property that's on the other side of that map there on the easement, first residential partial there. Not really so much opposition to it, but we would like for the board to keep in mind that we would like that to be done in a way that it doesn't destroy the residential homes that are in that area. If we're looking at what's been presented by the staff, that there's one entrance on Willow, one on Bridges, and we try to make that a good site commercial subdivision, and that's something we're fine with. But to just take and piecemeal it would be what I think we're trying to avoid, and we have a lot of just crazy traffic in and out, and that's already a very congested piece of property right now as far as traffic at that corner already. And something like that where you maybe have more than one entrance, especially on Willow Lane, is going to create a lot of havoc already. We have experienced traffic bumper to bumper all weekends usually at that site. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak in opposition of the case? Okay, I don't see anyone else coming up. So if the applicant would please come forward. Does the staff have any questions for the applicant or staff based upon what they heard comments from the audience tonight that would like to ask the applicant or staff? Okay, I don't hear any more questions or comments, so you can be seated. Applicant, yes. All right, if I could get someone to call the case.
Case number RZ-15-13, Kelly Green Acres, LP of Hampton, Georgia, requests a rezoning from RA Residential Agricultural to C3 Highway Commercial for the property located at the southeast corner of the intersection of Willow Lane and Bridges Road in land lot 130 of the 7th District. The property consists of 7.439 plus or minus acres, and the request is for a commercial development. And it is located in Commission District 3 and was presented by Mr. Stacy Jordan.
Okay, do I have a motion for this case?
Yes, I would like to make a motion to deny the request for C3 Highway Commercial and to approve C2 General Commercial with the 9 conditions reported by staff and as previously recounted and are part of the record of this meeting.
Okay, I have a motion for denial of the C3, but approval of a C2 with 9 conditions. Do I have a second?
A second.
Okay, I have a second by Mr. DeLander. Any discussion? All those in favor indicate by raising your hand. The motion is carried. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to call case RZ-15-14.
Yes, sir. Case number RZ-15-14, Cynthia R. Middleton of Stockbridge, Georgia, requests a rezoning from R1 single-family residence to RA residential agricultural for the property located at 1435 Highway 138 East in land lot 94 of the 11th District. The property consists of 1.955 plus or minus acres, and the request is for tractor-trailer parking, and is located in Commission District 4 and will be presented by Josephine Medina.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the board. In the application, I am presenting to you today the applicant requesting a rezoning from R1 to RA. The purpose of this request is for the parking and storage of a tractor-trailer. The property consists of 1.955 plus or minus acres, and a tractor-trailer is defined by the ULDC as a commercial vehicle. Section 2.04.02 of the ULDC states that the parking and storage of any commercial vehicle shall be prohibited within all residential subdivisions and all residential zoning districts with the exception of the RA zoning district. In the applicant's letter of intent, she states that her husband is an owner-operator truck driver and wishes to be able to park his tractor-trailer at home. She also goes on to state that since their purchase of the property back in December of 2011, one of the main drawing points for purchasing the property was their belief that the property was zoned RA. It wasn't until recently that she discovered that the property was indeed zoned R1. If we take a look at the zoning map on the overhead, it shows that the property is surrounded to the south and east by other RA zone properties. To the west and rear of the property are R1 zone properties that are within the Cutler Mill subdivision. To the north of the property are R1 zone properties that are not within any subdivision. If we look at the future land use map, it indicates that the property is zoned rural residential. Rural residential, according to the comprehensive plan, is consistent with the R1 and RA current zoning districts. Under the technical definition of rural residential, it characterizes RA zoning districts as having a lot width of 175 feet. If we look at the site plan, it shows that the property has a lot width of 150.09 feet, which is inconsistent with the rural residential definition of residential agricultural. If we look at the current development regulations for RA, it also provides that the lot width will be 175 feet. A variance request, which was presented in Case 3, VR 1511, is running concurrently with this to reduce the minimum lot width to 150 feet to meet the development regulations for RA zone property. An administrative variance was approved for a garage that is located on the north of the property. And this was for, it is 9.9 feet away from the property line, and the ULDC requires 10 feet for our accessory structures from the property line. The proposed use from staff's assessment will not impact the area with appropriate mitigation conditions for noise and screening if the board wishes to impose. The property is a legal conforming lot under the R1 zoning district. And has been since 1992 developed as a home. Staff recommends denial based on the property being inconsistent with the technical definition of rural residential for RA zone properties. In addition, the inability for the property to conform to RA development regulations without a variance. Staff has provided 4 conditions as recommendations if the board so pleases to approve the zoning.
Any questions from the board for staff? Mr. Richards?
Yes, just one. If this is zoned RA, that would still mean, I believe, that the principal use of the property would still be single-family residential. Is that correct?
Yeah, it could be, yeah. There's other uses that could be used under RA and other residentials as well.
Right, that would be the principal use of the property is single-family residential.
Sorry, can you repeat the question? Not sure.
Okay, okay. What I asked is if it were rezoned to RA, the RA zoning still means that that the principal use of the property would be for single-family residence.
There are other uses in RA that are allowed, though. But
right,
if they will,
others,
yeah.
But yeah, okay.
So, could a commercial business be in an RA zoned property?
No.
Okay. So, would we need to put a condition to re-emphasize that a commercial business cannot, or is that something that's already?
That's per our code of ordinances.
That's the code
yes.
anyway, so I don't have to put that as a condition, okay. And, that's all I had. Sorry.
Okay. All right. Any additional questions? Mr. Alexander?
Would it be appropriate to add an additional condition limited into one tractor.
Yes, you can do, it could be more limiting, yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, if there's no other questions, we'd like the applicant to come forward. Again, will you state your name and address for the record, please?
My name is Cynthia R. Middleton, address 1435 Highway 138 East, Stockbridge, Georgia 30281.
Okay, Ms. Middleton, do you have anything that you would like to add to staff comments?
Yeah, just in reference to the conditions, if approved, the first one, we pretty much, I feel I don't have any problem with the conditions. The first one, we already meet that. Where he would park is not in direct view of any of the properties. Where we live, to my east, of course, south is in front of me, way across the street, so they wouldn't see it because they would be parked behind. And let me get my directions right. To the, that's the south property. That's across the street on the opposite side of Highway 138. The truck will be parked behind me. To my north, which are my neighbors to my left, there, my garage actually would, where the second building, my garage, there's no direct view because my garage would block where the truck, they wouldn't be able to see the truck unless they came and walked back there. To the west and the east, the west is the subdivision behind me, but there's, I'm more than 100 feet away. There's woods. My whole lot is not clear, so there's almost an acre of wooded. So I'm way, that wouldn't bother them as far as direct view. And then to my east, which is Miss Linda who wrote the letter, there's already a buffer there between us that's probably more than 20 feet. And then also number 2, that's to the west, the subdivision behind me, where I have almost an acre of wooded land, so I can't even see the house behind me. I don't even know them. I can't see it. Number 3, I actually gave you guys the letter already, so that took care of number 3. But like I stated earlier, that actually would not be a problem because I already spoke with Georgia DOT. They already came out and viewed it, so I would have to make it, conform to what they want it to be, which is 4 foot inside of my property line, so it would not be encroaching at all once that is corrected. And then number 4. Oh, well, that's still the variance that we spoke about when I first came up. So really, as far as the condition, the biggest issue would be number 4. And then also, I know we're stating that if it is approved to add that 1 truck is there, but I just would want to make sure that that's the rule for anyone who's RA. Not anything special for me, but does that actually apply to RA in general? And if it doesn't, I wouldn't want that step put on just me, you know what I'm saying? Because if there's no limit, if it's written to where there is no limit, then I wouldn't want mine to say I can only park 1 truck there if I'm RA, and then someone up the street from me who's RA have 2 trucks or whatever. So I just want to make sure that that's researched and that has to be stated like that.
Any additional questions for the applicant?
I do.
I have one more thing. I'm sorry. Can I say it?
I was asking. Go ahead, you have one more thing?
Yes, one more thing. The only other issue was what you guys stated as far as if he works from home, it's the physical address is at our home. And we'll double check to make sure it probably is, but if that is the case, it won't be a problem for the physical address to not be our home because he doesn't have an office at our house. He just uses his laptop. So if we needed to rent a space or just whatever we need to do, we would do that. So it's not like he has an office there. It's just because of the type of business he's in with a lot of the people that he runs loads for, it's mandatory that he has a physical address. So that's the only reason that it would be that address.
Ms. Consiglia.
Okay, in regards to your statement that you wanted us to be fair, that if we don't put a condition on you for the amount of vehicles compared to someone down the street who might want to do the same thing, you do understand that you're asking us for permission to do something that you're not allowed to do today anyway. And we gave you a variance for a lot size that was not in conformity for what you're asking for. So for you to say to us, we want you to be fair, we just want you to understand we're trying to help We want you to help us help you.
I understand.
And in doing that, there's certain things that we want you to do so that we can help you, and that is to limit
Okay.
what you have on your property.
Okay.
And I don't think that's asking for us to be unfair, but we can't compare your property with other properties that might be in conformity that are in RA. So I want to make sure you understand that we're trying to, as a board, find a way to accommodate something that was denied by staff, but we were trying to find a way to help accommodate that. And then so I don't want to be put back in a corner and say, well, then we can't approve a zoning request because then you've put a condition on us on what you want from us because you think we're not being fair. So I just want to make that clear for the record. We're trying to be as fair as we can.
Thank you.
And I'm not finished. Okay, so I would like to ask you if you would have a problem, because we talked about the trees and the taking down of the trees, which I have a problem with because I felt like if you left the trees there, then people probably wouldn't see, what they can see today. But if you have no issue with why, I guess probably need to ask staff, why is there just a 20-foot buffer instead of a 40-foot buffer in the back?
Well, when I looked at the plan, I couldn't see how there would be on the side just because of the garage and the concrete on how it. I couldn't see how they would be able to put a buffer. And when I was looking at the plan, I guess I was confused with what was proposed in the plan on where the actual driveway would be. So I thought there wouldn't be any room for there to be a buffer, but if that's not the case.
Can we put up an aerial so we can just kind of see where that subdivision is that you're talking about, the 20-foot natural buffer property line that's adjacent to Cutler Mills subdivision? I just want to see where that subdivision is, and then just see if a 40-foot buffer would be appropriate. I just didn't want to. Yes, it looks like it's on the back side of the property, so a 40-foot buffer would work there also. And then she's saying that it looks like that there's still a 20-foot buffer up until she gets to the driveways. So I would like, if that's okay, to say a 40-foot buffer at the property line adjacent to Cutler Mill subdivision, and the 20-foot undisturbed natural buffer stay in place up to the driveways and the adjacent building. Because then I think then she's got a driveway and then this other additional driveway. And then would we need to add another condition 5 that speaks of the variance where they have to conform to Georgia DOT driveway standards and conformity? Dante, should we repeat that? And a number 5?
For the record, if you would repeat it so that we can make note of it.
Okay. So my question is, would you have, and then I'm going to, also, I feel like that, from me, I just think limiting the amount of truck traffic there would just help in the situation to maybe, I don't know, but I'm thinking maybe 2 vehicles since he already has the 2 and not restrict that. I mean, not restrict the 2 that he already has, but restrict any more that comes in and out of there. So I just wanted to see what your feelings were about those conditions that I want to add.
Yeah, everything.
Okay.
Sounds, yes.
All right, and I'm sorry, that just wanted to make sure for the record. Okay.
Mr. Richard.
Well, that's why I made the comment earlier that the principal use of the property is still, as your home, and I think by restricting it to the 2 vehicles, it doesn't fill up the whole property with trucks. That's not what we want to do. So I think that if there's a restriction on the number of the vehicles that would be parked at any one time, and then also as a suggestion, now I think RA, the RA zoning does allow a gravel driveway or an unpaved driveway, but I'd like to suggest, that you come in from the 4 feet, from the side property line, and then maybe make at least a 12-foot wide driving surface, similar to what the average highway lane width is. So.
Yes.
So I'd like to, if we decide to approve this, I'd like to make that a condition.
Can you ask
Anything
him
else,
to repeat
Mr.
that?
Rich?
No, thank you.
Okay. Any additional questions? I'm sorry. Mr. Richard, will you repeat that condition?
Okay, that the future driveway, or rather the, gravel driveway, that's there now, be removed from the adjacent property, and that it be extended from the Georgia DOT stub out that's shown on the plat, and be extended into the property at least 12 feet wide of a gravel or hard surface.
Any additional questions from the board?
I don't have.
None? Okay. If there is no additional question, you may be seated, ma'am. At this time, I'd like to allot 10 minutes for those that would like to speak in favor of this case. Minutes for those speaking in favor of the case. And if you will, again, state your name and address for the record, please.
Barbara Perkins, 1455 Highway 138 East, Stockbridge, Georgia, 30281. Like I told you before, I'm directly beside her. So whatever they have been doing has not disturbed my family one bit. We don't know when they come and go, so what they've currently been doing is fine with us. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else that would like to speak in favor of the case? Okay. Anyone would like to speak in opposition of the case? Oh, you want to speak in favor, sir? Yes. Okay.
Hi, my name is Kendall Middleton at 1435 Highway 138 East, Stockbridge, Georgia, 30281. And I just want to say I support the request. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else would like to speak in favor? Anyone would like to speak in opposition of the case? Okay, if no one is coming forward, will the applicant come forward, please? Are there any additional questions from the board for the applicant? Okay. Okay, we may call the case, please. You may be seated, ma'am.
Case number RZ-15-14, Cynthia R. Middleton of Stockbridge, Georgia, requests a rezoning from R1, single-family residence, to RA, residential agricultural, for the property located at 1435 Highway 138 East in land lot 94 of the 11th District. The property consists of 1.955 plus or minus acres, and the request is for tractor trailer parking and is located in Commission District 4 and was presented by Josephine Medina.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the rezoning from R1 to RA with the following zoning conditions given by staff, with the rewording of number 1 to read, only 2 commercial vehicle parking or storage shall occur and shall be behind principal building of property, and vehicles must be screened from view to any adjacent property with a direct view of where the commercial vehicles will be parked and from the public right-of-way. I would like for number 2 to read, a 40-foot natural buffer will remain on the rear property line that is adjacent to Cutler Mill subdivision, and a 20-foot undisturbed natural buffer shall remain on the rest of the property except where there is a building or driveway which would prohibit the 20-foot buffer. I would like to, number 3, number 4 is to stay the same. I would like to add a condition number 5 that says the variance that was, the condition that was added to the variance be met, but expanded to say that the future driveway that is the driveway that is now gravel be removed from the adjacent property and be extended to 12 feet as per DOT standards.
I think actually I made a mistake that, I think that standard is 14 feet, not 12.
Okay, excuse me, to 14 feet for the driveway to meet GDTL, Georgia DOT's driveway standards. That is all I have.
Okay. We have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been seconded by Mr. Richard. All in favor? Motion carries. Sorry, no discussion.
That's okay. Okay, we're going to read the next case, please.
Case number COMP-AM-15-03, Kelly Green Acres LP of Hampton, Georgia, requests an amendment to the comprehensive plan for property located at the southeast corner of the intersection of Willow Lane and Bridges Road in Land Lot 130 of the 7th District. The request is to amend the future land use designation from high-density residential to commercial and is located in Commission District 3 and will be presented by Stacy Jordan.
Good evening, Madam Chair, board members. Regarding the property at the intersection of Bridges Road and Willow Lane, this is the associated request to change the future land use map from high-density residential between 6 and 16 dwelling units per acre to commercial. The previous request was to rezone the subject property, and the Zoning Advisory Board had recommended approval. And the first condition states the future land use map shall designate the subject property for commercial. So an approval of this request would accomplish the first condition for the applicant's rezoning. Also, the staff has evaluated the applicant's request as far as the existing zonings in the area. Staff has noted that for the other 3 corners, the other 3 corners are zoned for C2 general commercial uses. And so if you take a look at the future land use map, all of this red designated currently is for commercial. All of this brown color, it should read high density residential, and it includes the subject property. The adjacent property to the north was zoned as a planned development within this high density residential zoning or land use category of the future land use map. It includes an apartment complex. It includes single-family residential uses, and it includes associated commercial. But for the subject property, they're requesting a C3, and the Zoning Advisory Board has seen fit to recommend C2, necessitating the request to change this future land use map from high-density residential to commercial. The staff has recommended approval of the applicant's request, and I'd be pleased to answer any questions.
Do any of the board members have any questions for staff at this time? I think they have any, so I can ask the applicant to please come forward. State your name and address for the record.
Butch Springer, 785 New Morn Drive, Hampton, Georgia.
All right, do you have anything you want to add to staff's comments regarding this?
No, ma'am. We're fine. The only thing I guess I just need to on the on our information sheet, it says Kelly Green Acres, Hampton, Georgia. Well, it's actually the property's McDonough. I'm not sure where the Hampton came from. I just needed clarity that it's actually McDonough, Georgia, not Hampton. The owners live in Hampton, but the property, we just noted that.
Any questions from the board for the applicant? Okay, they don't have any. You may be seated. this time, we're gonna open it up for comments from the public and asking for anybody that wants to speak in favor of the case to please come forward. Is anyone to speak in opposition of the case? Okay, hate to ask you to come back up, but you want to go ahead and come back up. Let's see if anybody has any last comments or questions for you or staff before we call the case. Okay, no comments from board? Okay, you may be seated. Please call the case.
Number COMP-AM-15-03, Kelly Green Acres LP of McDonough, Georgia, requests an amendment to the comprehensive plan for property located at the southeast corner of the intersection of Willow Lane and Bridges Road in Land Lot 130 of the 7th District. The request is to amend the future land use designation from high-density residential to commercial and is located in Commission District 3 and was presented by Stacy Jordan.
No motion for this case.
I make a motion to approve the amendment to the comprehensive land use plan.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Rabb. Any discussion? All those in favor indicate by raising your hand. Motion carried. Thank you. At this time, it concludes the action and, of the zoning board, and I need a motion for adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
So moved. Okay.